amazing moment of inspiration. Using a piece of information that had always been in the character analysis of the killer, I succeeded in twisting the story one final time. The reader will probably know who the killer is at this point, but there is no way the reader will know how he did it or why he did it. Could this book be a keeper? Journal of a Novel, July 3rd, 1998. Before we move on to the next part, process, let's tie up a few loose ends about craft, the first of which is suspense. Personally, I consider suspense one of the most misunderstood elements of fiction writing, right up there with point of view and voice. This is because most people think of suspense in terms of cliff-hanging action, bombs ticking and damsels hanging by their fingernails from the ledges of tall buildings. But when it comes to suspense, what I think of is everything the writer does, or has at her disposal to do, to keep the reader turning the pages of her book. That's it. A painter friend of mine once told me that an artist has less than 30 seconds to capture someone's interest in his canvas, the time, more or less, that it takes someone to stroll slowly by it in a gallery. If the painter cannot snare the collector in that time, then he considers the work less than successful. This isn't unlike the writer's objective in keeping the reader reading, although the writer's job is infinitely more challenging since she has just a few pages, sometimes only one, in which to hook the reader. Yet hooking alone isn't enough. Maintaining the reader's interest and attention to the end of the story is also part of the writer's job. Hence, suspense needs to be created. Suspense helps maintain reader interest simply because suspense initiates wants in the reader. Involved in a skillfully written book, the reader wants to know what's going to happen on 3 different fronts. 1, to the characters. 2, to the situation in which these characters happen to find themselves. And 3, to the plot. Additionally, the reader is going to want to know how these things are going to happen. And the only way the reader is going to get any of that information, hence the only way the reader's wants are going to be satisfied, is by turning the pages. In other words, a great deal of what is suspense in a novel is simply the art of creating one large don't want, so that the reader with the book in his hands thinks, I don't want to put this damn book down. The reality is that a writer achieves suspense simply by making the reader care about something. When we care, we are invested. In the world of literature, that translates to, when we care, we continue to read. The opportunities to care are as varied as the tools of the writer's trade, those fundamentals of fiction that the writer learns to wield. One of them is, obviously, character. If you can create a character who possesses some element of personality or experience that the reader can identify with, the result will be that the reader will be more intrigued with the story you're telling. These elements of identification come from the idea of commonality. We relate to people who have emotional experiences that resonate within our own lives. We understand people who have backgrounds similar to ours, or who live in situations that draw empathy from us. We admire characters who face and prevail over situations we ourselves have experienced. We admire the honesty of characters who unflinchingly examine themselves and their motives, who learn from their mistakes, and who meet challenges with courage. All of this amounts to our caring about a character. Caring about him, we will not abandon him to his fate, certainly not without knowing what that fate is, which is what the story itself will reveal to us. Keeping this in mind, take a final look at the opening from Robert Ferrigno's Horse Latitudes. It didn't take much to set him off these days. Laughter from the apartment below, a flash of blonde hair out of the corner of his eye, or, late at night, the sound of 2 car doors slamming in quick succession. Especially that. He imagined them walking to his place or her place, both of them eager but trying not to let it show, holding hands, tentatively at first, then the man slipping his arm around her waist while she smiled and laid her head on his shoulder. There were nights when Danny missed Lauren so bad that he wanted to take a fat man and throw him through a plate glass window, just for the sound of it. Instead, he went swimming in the bay. The water was cold and dark and empty, and he hadn't missed a swim in the 4 months and 10 days since the divorce became final. He was going to drown one of these nights, or he was going to get over her. It was too early to tell which. What Ferrigno does so well in this opening is to give us a character who has been grievously wounded by love. In doing this, he strikes a chord of common experience with virtually every reader he has. The reason is